I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please silence your cell phones before we get started today and stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Roll call. We begin with Commissioner Culbertson.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
I'm here. Commissioner Doug Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Stephen.
Here.
You're all present and accounted for. Public comment. This morning we have Mr. McMillan. Please come forward and state your name and address.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Eric McMillan, Easton Township, Mr. Culbertson's district. Good morning, Commissioners. The agenda today says the Commission is set to vote on whether or not to exceed the revenue neutral rate and raise property taxes on the citizens of the county in these times of financial stress and uncertainty, especially for older citizens that own their own homes. I've watched the videos of the budget work sessions and the Commission meetings where the budget was discussed, every minute of them. I want to commend the Commissioners who have looked hard at the budget and asked the hard questions. I was encouraged that there seems to be a growing recognition by you as Commissioners that there are essential functions of county government in the proposed department budgets and non-essential, nice-to-have requests, both some of the department budgets and especially in the outside organization requests. Most encouraging to me, a guy who thinks big government socialism is a bad idea, are comments I heard from Commissioners that it's not good to use the county's power to force people to pay taxes to support private and charitable organizations and civic organizations. I was encouraged by the recognition that there may be fat in some of the department budgets. Not a lot, but there may be. Kind of like fat marbled into a ribeye steak. Given these positive developments, I encourage the Board to delay voting on the resolution to exceed revenue neutral. I think with a little more work and some hard choices, revenue neutral might be achieved. It might help to focus on true core functions of county government instead of focusing on services that might be cut. In our tradition of constitutional, free, and limited government, county government should not be doing for people what they can do for themselves, or what families or private charity or civic organizations should do. We all need to remember that taxes, as necessary as they are always coercive. If someone won't or can't pay their property taxes, their homes can be seized and sold. I've seen this board vote to do just that. So before voting an intent to exceed revenue neutral, Commissioners, I urge you to embrace the vision of county government that focuses on core government functions, not nice to have or feel-good stuff that ought to be done outside of government. As one of our former presidents said, a government that can give you all you want can take all you have. Taxes continually going up and up threaten to take the homes of many county residents, particularly elderly homeowners. Please focus on core government functions and delay the vote to exceed revenue neutral. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. We have no further public comment. Administrative business. I'll begin with Mr. Van Der.
Commissioners, thank you. Yesterday afternoon, Ms. Brown and I had the opportunity to meet with Judge Clinton Lee regarding the reinitiation of codes court actions to enforce codes, particularly with respect to property conditions out in the county. Just wanted to report to you we are reinitiating those procedures. The court has been generous in allocating a specific date and a time block to hear those cases. So I wanted to update you that we will be pursuing basically property remediation actions throughout the county, and I wanted to express my thanks to the court for accommodating that. And let's talk about our favorite topic, litigation. The county had two matters recently in which we were named as defendants dismissed. The first was an issue between an insurance company and an insured regarding a wrongful death action. The county filed a motion to dismiss that action. The court granted that motion. So we'll see how that develops any further. I don't anticipate it. The county recently, in fact, on Monday, received a decision from the U.S. District Court, Judge Catherine Brattle, dismissing an action filed against the county with respect to forever fencing claims. So the federal action has been dismissed. They do have the right to appeal to the 10th Circuit, but at the same time, there is a pending state action regarding the denial of a special use permit, and I will be asking the court to lift the stay on that action.
Thank you. Mr. Lothar, do you have anything? Anyone have anything they'd like to bring up in administrative business?
I got a couple things if you got time.
Okay, go ahead.
On July 25th, the surrounding counties or connecting counties want to have a meeting down at the Mid-America Regional Council office at noon. There's no Mid-America Regional Council meeting this month, so I didn't know if Jeff wanted to attend.
Sure.
Okay. And if any other commissioner wants to attend, we just have to put it on the agenda. So it's during the fair week.
Oh, it's in. Okay. I was going to say I'd go, but I won't be able to.
I didn't think so. So Jeff and I, or anybody else interested?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Jeff, you wanted to? Okay.
All right, and then on the 27th, there's a Zoom meeting with KAC about local ad valorem tax.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's during the fair week again, so I didn't know if any commissioners could.
I already planned on.
I signed up for that
okay,
one.
you guys are already doing that?
Yep.
All right,
Got
that's
it.
great. Thank you for that. And then the article that was in the paper about Leavenworth County being the third richest county.
Yeah.
So Jeff's idea about income tax instead of property tax is a pretty good idea.
Would work perfect.
And exactly, and that fits with the 16th Amendment, income tax, not property tax. And last is Pat Moore. He's going to be retiring on Friday, correct?
Yes.
So there was a retirement out at the EMS building. Or is it? Okay.
Right.
At 2:30. I think it's 2:30. Anyway, anyways, I plan on attending that.
So just a comment on that. Just a historical. When the Constitution was put into place, income taxes were not legal.
Right. That's why it's 16th Amendment.
Yeah. So my fear with any kind of a tax is you get your foot in the door, and the next thing you know, they're taxing more and more and more.
Okay. And is there anything in the Constitution about property tax?
There should be. We're working on it.
Have to do another amendment. Oh,
Yeah.
But with that, while we're talking about that,
Yeah.
I brought up last week about 1998. They cut the vehicle taxes in half, and they were going to try to do away with them.
You read
All that
Governor
did,
Graves.
I know, but all that did was shift it. What I meant to follow up with, all that did was start the shift to the homeowners.
Yep.
Not everybody that owns a vehicle owns a home, but all of a sudden now we just shifted more to the homeowners. Started back then, and it's not quit.
Yeah.
Anyway, I better be quiet.
Okay.
Good points, Doug.
All right. Now, if we have no further administrative business, we'll go on to the consent agenda. Is there anything that needs to be removed from the consent agenda this morning?
I need to check registry removed.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the consent agenda minus the check registry.
Second.
A motion is second. Begin voting with Commissioner Culberson.
Aye.
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 Madam Chair, I move that we accept the check registry section of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion is second. Begin voting with Commissioner Culberson.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
I was getting ahead of
Vicky's
myself.
in turbocharge this morning.
Okay, formal board action. We need to consider a motion to approve the funding request from local historical societies and museums. Okay.
Commissioners, for the past several years, we have budgeted $50,000 annually to be distributed out to the historical societies. The past 3 years, I believe, you have chosen to just split it equally among those applying for resources. The clerk has provided you a spreadsheet with the current requests and what the equal split would be. I don't know if you had any conversations about that, but that's the presentation.
No conversation. I just want to remind now, after this cycle, though, we have determined that we will no longer do those types of.
It is not included in the 2024
Right.
budget.
Just making that kind of clarify that for the public to understand that.
They got a letter last year.
Right.
They
Letters
got a letter last year.
were sent advising the non-county organizations that funding would probably not be forthcoming. So that's just as a. Does anybody have any questions regarding the museums and the distribution of funding?
Last year.
With the same as last year, right? So, do I need a motion? I need a motion. Do I have one?
We would need a motion to adopt the distribution as presented by the clerk.
But it's clear, this is the last year.
It is not
This
in
is-
next year's budget.
This is the 23 money we're talking
Right.
about.
This
Right,
is
that's
the
what I want
money
to make
that
sure.
we already-
I want to make sure everybody understood that.
Right.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the funding request from local historical societies and museums.
Second.
I correct that if you wouldn't mind. The funding as per the proposal by the clerk, as requested, it totals $160,000.
Oh, yeah, we had to change it.
Oh, yeah, 50,000. Yeah, I guess, okay, take the second. Request to make a motion to approve the funding request from local societies and museums for not to exceed 50,000.
Second.
Motion and second. Begin voting with Commissioner Colbert.
Is that,
I
okay.
think you want to approve the distribution as presented by the clerk.
Distribution
Is that how it was
as
worded?
presented by the clerk.
What he said.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
Which was 50 total,
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's saying the same thing, but.
Yes, it's
yeah.
just split equally.
Okay.
The way he words it.
Second.
Yeah.
Voting.
Voting.
Aye.
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 No.
Aye.
And we need to consider a motion to approve Resolution 2023-18, levying a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate for tax year 2023.
A few years ago, the revenue neutral rate statute was passed, and so this is a requirement. There is a July 20th deadline, and so that's why it is presented at this time. There is an intent of a levy that is in that resolution and on the indication to go above the revenue neutral. Doesn't mean that you have to stay with that, but it is necessary to put a tentative levy in there on what you plan to set the budget on.
So after we pass this, and for some reason we can stay revenue neutral,
You have that capability to do it, but
Okay.
this is part of the statute that was passed. It's part of the notification that we give the residents of Leavenworth County. Each county must do it, and the notice that I'll send out after the 20th of July will go to each homeowner within the county.
Commissioner Stevens?
So, Mark, just as a comparison for folks, this revenue neutral is 31 mills. The budget that we're kind of preparing right now is about 4 mills higher than that,
About 4.3.
4.3 mills higher.
Which is roughly what, in the normal funds, not in the special funds.
Right.
So
This is just the
it's-
county.
Yeah, it's just the countywide funds. So that's roughly $4.3 million.
and what's our local ad valorem tax owed to us? About between $3 and $4 million.
Somewhere between 3 and 4 million in the LABTR.
Huh.
So we could have remained revenue neutral if we would have got the LABTR funds back.
So back in 1965, when they passed that law, they kind of knew what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been more feasible for us.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you that we would be able to because I don't know the exact number that they owe us, but somewhere.
We'd be in better shape than we
It'd
are
be
now.
Well, especially if you got it every year.
It'd be
It'd
close.
be really.
Mhm.
So, and the initial requests for the budget from the various departments, when we started this process, and we're still in the process of the budget, but the initial request came in at about a 13.2% increase. Is that correct?
I think it was more like 13.5, something like that.
13.5. And through the changes to the request that you've made, you've got it down to 7.5.
That's pretty close, yes.
Okay. But initially, we were requesting 4%.
Yeah, correct.
And what's the cost of living index this year? Or for?
Depends on which one you look at.
Yeah.
I think that, I think currently, I checked it earlier this week, I think it's like 4.5 for the Midwest, 4.4, somewhere in there. However, that's, from the time we passed our last budget until now, I don't know that would be completely accurate, but it's close, 4.5. I think one of the things that the commission asked is that we look to provide more funding for roads, and this budget does that. It doesn't get to where the initial request was, but it does provide more funding for road and bridge and local service roads.
Yeah, the way I look at it, it's pretty much the cost of living plus fixing the deficit in our road and bridge funds that's happened over the last 20 years.
Well, I'd make a motion that we remain revenue neutral just for the point of discussion on what we would all have to cut.
A lot.
Well, I mean, or do you want to discuss it without a motion?
So I have something for at the discussion point. I promise it won't be 30 minutes. So over the last 30 years, Leavenworth County has been acting like we were under Senate Bill 13 all along. That's why Senate Bill 13 did nothing to help the tax problem in Leavenworth County. Everything in the bill we have already done. It says the county needs to stay revenue neutral. That means only spend the same amount of money on the county budget as you did last year. Well, it's just like your personal household budget. If you try and only spend the same money this year as you did last year, the cost of living will force you to cut something out of your budget. You can't have the same things you had last year. Something has to go. So you just cut out the fat and only pay for what you absolutely need. And you can do that for a couple of years. But after a while, there's nothing left to cut. Unless you want to really start noticing important things missing. There's no way you can remain revenue neutral for 10 years from now with the cost of living going up an average of 4% each year. That means it costs you 40% more in 2033 to have the same things you had in 2023. If you did remain revenue neutral for that 10-year period, you would have to have cut your budget 40% of your assets and services. This is unattainable. I understand people saying we need to cut the fat out of the county budget. The county started drastically cutting the county budget about 30 years ago. We stopped giving raises to employees. After years of no raises, we took it up a notch by cutting salaries. When someone would leave, the new hire was paid less. Problem with this is the county got way behind on comparable salaries across the board. People are leaving left and right to go to better paying jobs. We did a RIF, reduction in force. We laid off employees. Problem with this is the remaining employees' workloads went up, so the service to the public went down. We revoked several holidays. We stopped paying sick leave saved up by people when they retire. We stopped buying new cars and made all departments use old sheriff's cars after they racked up 300,000 miles on them. We combined departments. We used to have brush crews to keep the ditches and trees mowed. We cut health inspectors. We cut out the county doing perk tests. We've seen more filled lagoons and septic systems now than we did before that. My point is everything we cut comes with consequences. When do the consequences outweigh the savings? That's where we are today. Every department has cut and cut until the public outcry for that service or lack of service is loud enough. We stop the cutting and just back up one step. We have reached a minimum acceptable level of service in every department. Every single county department is now severely underfunded, some more than others. Road and bridge, for example. There are 150 bridges in the county. A bridge lasts about 50 years. So to be responsible, we should be replacing 3 bridges every year. But to try and lower the budget, the county has cut the bridge fund to an irresponsible point, and we only replace one bridge a year. The easiest can to kick down the street is a budget line item that doesn't show up right now. No one will notice this fund is short for years down the road. Well, guess what? We are years down the road right now. The county used to blade your driveway or clear snow for 1 hour per taxpayer per year. We used to put in driveway tubes. We used to stripe our roads in-house. We used to spray dust control and chemicals on the gravel roads. We tried cutting back on mowing ditches this last summer, and the calls were nonstop complaining about it. There's also a safety factor problem with not mowing ditches. You can't see oncoming traffic out of the driveways or crossroads. More serious consequences of saving money. Most recently, some of the things we did to save money is stop paying almost $100,000 a year in rent for several county departments, including the Council on Aging. After spending almost $1 million in rent over the years, we now have a permanent home for them at Cushing. We also are going to rent out the 3rd and 4th floors to pay all the utilities on the entire building and cover repairs and maintenance on the building for the rest of the county departments. So you went from being a tenant to being a landlord. We did the reverse with the juvenile detention center, saving money. It was costing us about $350,000 a year to maintain this facility, and sometimes only had one prisoner in it. So the sheriff contracted with Wyandotte County and now to hold our juveniles, and the savings is tremendous. This list goes on. What I'm trying to make sure everyone understands is that we didn't just start cutting the budget lately. Way before Senate Bill 13 passed, we already set our target to remain revenue neutral every year for the last 30 years. In reality, Leavenworth County has cut the budget so much over the years, we now have the 7th lowest mill levy in the state of Kansas out of 105 counties. There are only 6 counties that you could pay less taxes to the county than us. I know certain people are telling you Leavenworth has the highest mill levy or the 4th highest mill levy or whatever they're saying. It's simply not true. Look it up. It's easy information to find. I think when they say that, they're confusing combined mill levy, which includes your school levy, your library levy, the township levy, et cetera, which the county commission has no control over. The levy we do control, we have lowered every year for the last 4 or 5 years and now have the 7th lowest in the state.
Is that a second to my motion, or did my motion die from my Okay, well, we can discuss it if I didn't get a second, but, I mean, I got a plan. It's a bad plan, but we could remain revenue neutral. We could not build 3 bridges. We could lay off 20 employees, and we could cut out all outside agencies, and we could remain revenue neutral.
Which is what it would take.
That's what it would take. Or we could cancel a County Road 30 project and just forget it forever. Or we could stop using sales tax money for projects and just use it to replace a bridge when we got to close a road. Like I said, I have a plan. It's a bad plan, but
it sounds like the plan that we've used for the last 20 or 30 years.
Well, where do you think I got it from?
Yep, exactly.
So, does anybody else have a plan?
That's exactly
Does
why we're in
anybody
shape
else
we're
on
in.
this board have a plan to remain revenue neutral? I looked at this, I researched it, and this is what we could do to remain revenue neutral. It's a plan. It's a bad plan.
I've looked at that budget, and I've been doing budgets for over 30 years, whether it's municipal or something like that. And I can tell you that we went through this budget, and we've still got some critiquing to do on some issues. And I'd love to be able to say we do revenue neutral, but I just can't do it and not provide the services that the county citizens are countless on. Now, as time goes by, would I like to take a little bit more off and off and off? Sure. But, we didn't put in motion that 30% on things that are costing us, like bridges and everything else we're doing, the fuel. We didn't put that in motion. But we're having to deal with it now. So I can't, even though I'd love to be able to do it, I can't support going revenue neutral unless somebody has a plan that shows me we're not going to cut services further than what we've already done.
My plan don't do that.
That's what I was going to do.
Okay.
Commissioner Stephen?
Couple things just for the general public. I understand we've been over this again and again and again, but the realization is that the county commissioners only have control and authority over about 25 to 28% of your property tax bill. So When you're looking at your property tax bill, the rest of it, the 40 to 60%, is from your school district. Your city has a good portion of it. So when we're talking about the county budget and what we can do with the county budget, we're limited. Even if we did go revenue neutral and all the other governing entities did not go revenue neutral, you would not see, well, you would see very little change on your property tax bill. So that's just the reality. I do want to address a couple things. Over the past 4 or 5 years on the commission, we have been increasing salaries. I mean, you're talking about salaries over time, but we've increased salaries over 20% in the last few years, the last 4 or 5 years. So we have been trying to address that. It's impossible to keep up with a county like Johnson County. It's impossible. But we're trying to do our due diligence to keep those salaries increased. And this current budget has a 4% increase built into it, at the 2024 proposal. What we asked for when we were going through this budget, and when I'm going to be deciding on voting on revenue neutral, I look at what the budget was that we asked for. And the budget we asked for was coming in at 4%. The initial budget that was requested was the 13.5, and we got it down to 7.5. Last week, I did, in fact, offer a couple proposals that do not affect any county services, but do reduce by almost $500,000 the amount that we spend. And we have had historically for the last 5 years from the sheriff's office almost $500,000 in carryover. That's padding built into the budget. And when you're doing a strict budget, you want to do your best to reduce that padding. So my suggestion was we cut that in half. So if we had a $247,000 carryover last year, we cut that in half down to $200,000, and that would allow us to have an additional amount of money savings. Also, we funded in the county attorney's office. We funded 1 year, and it was a decision of this board to be 1 year funding from ARPA, which is federal funds, not county funds, the 2 administrative positions. And the county attorney was aware that this was a one-time funding. And he has folded those into his 2024 budget request. Now, that is an increase that we did not discuss or agree to or have any kind of objective information about why that was necessary to move forward with that funding. So my suggestion was that we pull that money out. So that would get you almost $500,000 in savings in the budget. The commission did not want to agree to that. Now, do I think we could go revenue neutral? No, I don't think we could go revenue neutral. But the law doesn't allow me to make a decision on, it's an all or nothing proposition. Do I want a budget that's going to incorporate those items where I think we can do better? I think we can get this budget down closer to 4%, and I think we can do better.
I think we will. But today we just got to decide.
It's like a parent being asked to give the car keys to the teenage son, and I'm not sure I'm willing to give the car key. I'm not going to give the keys to the Mercedes by voting yes on exceeding revenue neutral when we don't have an agreement on reducing these budgets.
But Mike, I think one thing we didn't say with the office across the street, prosecutor's office, that we weren't going to do it. We asked for him to come before this board, and we had some questions for him, and I think that's going to be set up next week or down the line, so we consider what he's saying on. I have a couple questions on those 2 positions too, but I think that we needed to have that. I didn't want to, if there was questions on it, I didn't want to cut it right out from under him without him having the opportunity to explain it to it. But I never said that I wouldn't do it. I just asked for some more information on it.
Well, if this board would have agreed to those reductions, I would vote to exceed revenue neutral. But I'm not going to because I don't feel that I don't have any assurance that we're going to make those kind of reductions.
Well, where's the other $3.5 million we need to cut?
Well,
'Cause I want to hear your plan because I
what I'm
told you
telling,
my plan.
I think
there.
I'm not really here to debate it with you, Mr. Smith.
Well, that's what we're here for.
No.
We're supposed to be debating the budget.
We're addressing the chair,
Okay, Chair, we are here to discuss the budget.
but not to interact.
Right,
But
let's
I
just-
mean,
Well, you didn't second my motion to remain revenue neutral.
well, I just explained to you, Mr. Smith, why it is that I can't agree to this. If you would agree to reduce that carryover in the budget by the amount that I suggested last week, and you would agree to cut those 2 administrative positions out of the proposal and work towards getting this down to 4%, then yes, I'll vote for that.
Well, I
Well,
personally
you
am
should have
not.
seconded my motion on revenue
Well,
neutral.
I'm telling you why I'm not. I've given you my rationale.
All right. I'm not going to
Well, the
deny
motion
you the
died for a lack of
opportunity
second.
to write a letter in the paper saying I'm the only commissioner that wanted to remain revenue neutral and the rest of the commission wanted to raise your taxes. I won't deny you that. All right?
I'm a little
Let's not get personal. But I
Don't write articles in
think,
the paper that throw us all under the bus.
well, that's
Mr. Smith,
a different.
I've never thrown you under the bus, but I
Look at
have
last
pointed
week's
out.
paper.
I've given I'm representing my constituency, and I'm representing what they're wanting is fiscal conservative approach.
And you throw out a $500,000 cut for $4 million.
But I'm a little confused because all this is for is to say whether we can remain revenue neutral or not.
Right,
And you just said
what I'm
you know we
saying is,
can't.
and if you can't come down on
But
the
we've
budget,
already agreed to talk to the county attorney's office
to
about
talk,
the budget.
but I'm
Right.
saying I don't trust that we're going to come down.
Well, I think that
Even if we came down, would we be revenue neutral?
And
So
the
this is all
answer-
about asking, can you remain revenue
And that
neutral
gets
or
to
not?
my comment about handing the keys to the Mercedes to your teenage son. Is I think that the budget is out of control enough to where unless we're going to make significant, serious adjustments to this budget, that I'm not going to agree to that. So if we are united that we will make those changes, then I could agree to that.
Okay, I think that my personal opinion on it, I respect what you're trying to say, Commissioner Stephen. However, we have 2 other elected officials who have brought to us budgets that they say are necessary for them to operate effectively and efficiently. And to deny that, number one, is to tell them we know more about what they should or shouldn't or can or cannot do to operate their prospective offices and departments. That's just one thing, which I think that if, personally, I view that as being somewhat disrespectful to their autonomy in creating a budget that they feel they can operate under and do a good job. I know that that there were concerns, but the sheriff, I believe, tried to explain to us what that carryover was used for, and part of it was, in my understanding, was overtime that they have to pay for positions that they have not been able to have filled. But there's a lot of turnaround in that, and people are now re-entering and re-willing to become law enforcement officers for the sheriff's department. And so he said they had people they were interviewing to fill some of those positions. That's number one. The county attorney, yes, I think that we will be able to meet with them, has been out of town. It's not that he did not want to meet with us. It was that he has been unavailable to meet with us until this next week. However, I think that we need to remember that within the budget and the 2 positions and what they're going to need is that our county is getting ready to prosecute a death penalty case, which is going to be extremely expensive because they're going to have to pay for the legal counsel for a defendant and a team, and then they're also going to have to bring in specially trained prosecutor to assist, which will have to be paid for in the budget. If I'm not, and I think the clerk may know more about that than I do.
Well, that is true. In visiting with the county attorney, plus I reached out to some other counties, and that will be very expensive for Leavenworth County to prosecute an upcoming case that we have.
So at this point in time, I'm saying I would not be comfortable at all doing anything with that budget because of that. I mean, I think that and then some may be used to do that. I don't know.
Well,
Do you remember what percentage his budget increased this year?
I know over 2 years it's increased 74%, but that also included there was an IT computer software, and that was taken out by the county administrator. But just as a response, nothing that I suggested would in any way cut any services to the county, because I look here over time on what the budget has done. In 2020, there was a $400,000 carryover. In 2021, there was a $378,000 carryover. 2022, there was a $447,000 carryover. And as of the middle of this year, we're headed towards approximately a $400,000 carryover for this fiscal year. So all I'm saying is if you're operating, I mean, we're on a tight budget. Cut that carryover in half. There's still a lot of money to do the hiring but you don't need almost $500,000 carryover that's going back into the general fund. That's the taxpayers' money that could have been used elsewhere. Roads and bridges, and that's all. That's the reason. I think we need to get serious about this. And it's the county attorney's budget. We only agreed to those 2 ARPA positions for 1 year, and it was funded by federal money. He's still getting a healthy increase even without that.
And I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, Commissioner Stephen, about the attorney's budget and about the sheriff's budget. I'm not disagreeing about what you're saying. The part I don't understand is you even just said, I know we can't remain revenue neutral. This vote we're about to do is saying, can you remain revenue neutral or not? It's a yes or no question. If you're going to say, no, I'm not going to vote for not remaining revenue neutral, that means you think we can remain revenue neutral.
No, it says whether I agree to exceeding the revenue neutral rate, whether I'm going to vote to exceed that. And the way I look at it, I would support exceeding the revenue neutral rate if I felt like the other commissioners were going to agree to make some serious reductions in the budget, and I've presented what they are, and you guys are answering me no.
I don't think that nobody has told you no. We haven't had an opportunity.
Well, I made a motion last week. It didn't get seconded.
Well,
I just made a motion to bring revenue neutral, and you didn't second it.
Well,
So that must
we're
mean
talking
you
about
don't
the
agree
budget.
with me.
Mr. Smith, I'm not discussing it with you.
Well, who are you going to discuss it with?
I mean,
It's the Board of County Commissioners.
I'm not arguing with you personally.
But my question is,
discussing the
if
budget.
they made the cuts that you're asking for, would that get us to revenue neutral? It's a yes or no.
But I thought I explained it to you, but I will try again. If
I understand what you're saying. If we agree that they cut their budget,
I'm not going to
then
do it because I don't think the
you'll
budget's
vote.
going to come down enough. It doesn't mean that I think we can sustain revenue neutral. I mean, possibly you could do revenue neutral in a government for 1 year, but I don't think you could do it permanently.
Madam Chair, I think we beat this horse to death. If I could make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-18, levying a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate for tax year 2023.
Second.
motion is second. Begin voting with Commissioner Culberson.
Aye.
Aye.
We're a motion to approve resolution exceeding the revenue neutral rate for Leavenworth County.
Yeah.
23-19.
Right. So we're voting to exceed.
It's asking, are you voting to exceed the revenue neutral rate?
Okay.
Not that we are, but we won't know for a while. Aye.
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 No.
Now we need to consider a motion to approve Resolution 2023-19, levying a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate for Leavenworth County Special Other Funds for tax year 2023. Okay.
Commissioners, this is the local service road.
Right.
It's handled separate because it's not a county-wide. It's only on people who live outside incorporated cities.
And this is directly tied. This is directly tied to the bridge fund that I'm talking about that we've underfunded for the last 20 years.
And it doesn't support itself.
So, part of the discussion, if we were to, so if instead, I'm just kind of looking at way of saving money, okay? If we made a determination as a Board of County Commissioners that the general fund would not be used, any portion of the general fund would not be used to fund the special other funds.
Which is what we have done for the last 20 years.
But that we don't know, that if as a board we say that only what is
We can't
collected,
supplement it.
that we cannot supplement it through the general fund, would that save money in the county budget if we did not?
On local service?
Yeah,
you mean?
use
From
local-
road and bridge to local service? you mean?
Right.
Well, you'd probably stop doing any road maintenance about September.
Well, what's
But-
happened in the past is we had a set amount for the rural road fund, and it was always short. Every year, we would borrow money from the general fund to fund the road and bridge
But
because it was
should we-
always short.
But should we not do that if we're not going to collect and we're not going to, well, if we're not collecting what should be collected? Am I making, I'm
Yeah,
trying to make sense.
I'm clear.
Commissioners, first of all, just a point of clarification, it's not the general fund that subsidizes it. It's the
Subsidy.
road and bridge.
Okay, the road and bridge fund.
The road and bridge
which-
fund is a countywide property tax that hits all property taxpayers in the county, whereas local service is only for people who live outside incorporated cities. The intent of that is that the non-county routes basically should be funded by the people who live in the county versus the county routes should be funded by the people who live in the entire county because
Right.
of the usage. That, whether you agree or disagree with that, that's the concept of it. If you voted to not subsidize the local service road through road and bridge, it would either you would stop doing maintenance on the gravel roads and the bridges that are not part of county routes early or at all, or you would have to increase the levy in the local service fund significantly and probably, I'm just going to throw a number out there that sounds crazy, but it's probably pretty close. You'd probably need to nearly double it to keep up. So you'd have to do one of those things, either stop doing the maintenance or double that in the levy or somewhere around that. And Bill and I would have to sit down and actually calculate it if that was something you were considering.
I
It's
think what
actually
I'm-
gotten better over the years
Right.
with the additional houses, but it's never supported.
And the much
itself.
more expensive houses.
Yes,
Well, I think part of what I'm trying to say is that,
we're low.
we're low, and we have been low, and that's part of the reason that some of the levies are as high as they are in other areas, like the road and bridge regular fund is as high in the funding and what we're establishing as it is because of this. It's just
Well, deferred maintenance is the primary cause for the increase in the levy in the road and bridge fund and in the local service roads.
Right.
Deferred maintenance. It's the failure to keep up on the infrastructure you have. So over the years, the county has failed to keep up on the infrastructure. The cost of construction has gone through the roof compared to what we've been increasing at a slow rate, just trying to catch up to what we were already behind. And now when we have these huge increases in the cost of construction for bridges, it just puts us further behind. So I think Commissioner Culbertson pointed out, instead of building 2 bridges instead of 3, which we should be doing 3, now we're building 1 to 1.5. We try to get 1 year we might do 1, the next year 2, then 1 and 2. We're behind. By not funding it, it would get even further behind.
and had we not had the COVID relief funds, we
Yeah.
would be in even
Yeah.
worse shape. I'm just trying to.
And if anybody's
generate some
familiar with
conversation,
GASB
just-
34, that's exactly what created GASB 34, was people not funding and putting away money for something as it depreciates.
Right.
So I want to just point out, when we made the initial budget requests that came from the departments, and then you made an adjustment to those requests. What kind of an adjustment did you make to the public works?
I don't remember the total number off the top of my head, but it was over $1 million, probably closer
Right.
to $2 million total.
And what kind of adjustment did you make to the sheriff's department?
I made none because he came in at 2.95 or 97%,
And-
below the 4% that was the target.
And so the sheriff's department, compared to, if I recall, and I know you don't have the numbers right in front of you, the sheriff's department and the public works are going to be within $200,000 of the expenditure for next fiscal year. Is that, you
I
recall?
think in the overall, the general road and bridge and the sheriff's department are close in funding. I think the 200,000
Right.
is reasonable. That doesn't include local service revenue.
So that gets to what I was talking about, that $400,000 carryover. That is some money that would not reduce services, would not make any changes across the street, but would allow some room in this budget.
Commissioners, to clarify on that, we don't budget for carryover.
And I'm not saying we do.
Right.
We put a small amount aside in certain operating funds that are unallocated funds. It's not in someone's budget. It's unallocated in case our revenue comes in low or expenditure, some unforeseen expenditure. We do have that, but that's not in someone's budget.
Well, you're not budgeting for it.
The sheriff does not budget for carryover. What he has is carryover because he doesn't spend all of his funds, primarily because he has open positions. But for Kansas cash basis law, you have to budget for what you think you're going to spend.
Right.
So in order to reduce what you're talking about, this carryover, these unspent funds, he has to reduce his budget. He's not reducing the carryover. He has to reduce his expenditures by the amount that you're talking about.
So if we historically, and I know we visited about whether you should talk about positions or not, but these are funded positions. So if historically there's 10 positions, and historically year after year those 10 positions are rolling over, that represents money. That represents a certain amount of money, whether it's a position or money. So if you say instead of 10 positions rolling over every year, we're going to roll over and I'm not talking about positions necessarily, but it's the money for positions. You roll over 5 instead of 10. You still have room for hiring, and you are making your budget tighter.
The sheriff would have to
Eliminate positions.
Would have to eliminate those 5 positions.
Right, and they're not hired positions. They're budgeted positions
That are
As
needed.
The sheriff explained
that haven't been filled year after year.
Well, they are filled. They're rollover. So
Well-
it's not the same 10 positions. It's that at any given time he has 10 openings that he's constantly filling.
Exactly.
But when you have the number of employees that he has, and in the field, that's a field that's hard to fill. There's people who are leaving to go work in the Johnson counties or the casinos or wherever where they can make more money. So he constantly has openings, but it's not the same positions.
I'm not saying that it's the same positions, but I'm saying that we have over time left a lot of carryover, and you didn't budget for it, but the fact is it's happened.
It's
And
in the budget. It's in his budget to fill those positions.
But it
he is
hasn't
part of-
happened.
He is
But-
part of the general fund. So again, that carryover does go to the general fund.
Okay, but-
for the next year, it's unspent cash, so it increases our cash.
Right.
Madam
Okay,
Chair,
thank you,
I've got
but
one
right
thing.
now-
Can I say one
But,
thing?
but it's
Commissioner
about
Smith,
budgeting.
Just one thing, too, and I said it last week, and I'll say it again. Past law enforcement experience. I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Stephen, but I want this county safe. We're just discussing a little while ago about a murder that we're having to spend more money on. I want the residents in this county to feel very safe, not compared to what's going on in the rest of this country. So I have no problem filling. Hopefully he'd be able to fill all those positions and put more deputies on the street or more investigators for crimes that we've got going on. But I will not cut his budget because I want to give him the opportunity to fill his positions. And I think it's been said, and we've seen it across. For a few years, nobody wanted to wear a badge. I can't blame them after we saw what was going on in the country. But I think that's changing. People are realizing you don't defund the police. You keep them going so they can make everybody's life better. And so I just can't see taking that out of their money.
And a clarification, I'm not talking about defunding the police. I'm
But
talking
that
about a
is.
rate of increase. The rate that this budget is increasing and getting the budget under control so we don't have this carryover. It wouldn't, historically, this wouldn't change anything as far as services because we've had this carryover every year. These positions haven't been being
He
funded.
cut 3 positions.
They have
Well,
been, they have been
Can
filled.
we-
that.
We have the
well,
carryover
I
every
think we
year.
already discussed that. Yes, we are off in the weeds. What we are supposed to be discussing right now is considering the motion to approve the levy and property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral for the special other funds for tax year 2023 is what we are supposed to be discussing, please.
You have a
Okay.
motion and a second on
No, I didn't get a motion in a second on that.
Motion to approve Resolution 2023-19, levying a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate for Leavenworth County special other funds for tax year 2023.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Okay, begin voting with Commissioner Culbertson.
Aye.
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 that. Aye.
Oh.
Now, D, consider a motion to approve an agreement with KDOT for federal safe streets for all in an awarded 80/20 federal safety planning grant. Bill, come on down.
Morning, Bill.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Janet.
All right.
And we will be,
Commissioners, today for your consideration, we do have the approval of agreement number 457-23. It is a 10% grant for the remaining 20% of the federal Safe Streets for All program. So we received an 80% grant through the federal government to do a safety study. That safety study was required in order to be eligible for any implementation grants, which would be your construction dollars. We don't know the time frame of which this program will continue. Under current funding, it will end in about 3 years. So we're trying to get our study. We were the first round of studies, and so KDOT will be paying 10%. We applied for an additional grant to KDOT. They will pay for 10% of the remaining 20% of the required matching funds. So the county will be responsible for $35,000 of this study. KDOT will pay $35,000, and the federal government is going to contribute $275,000.
questions for Bill?
I don't have anything on it. I think it's great.
Madam Chair, I move we approve an agreement with KDOT for federal safe streets for all and awarded 80/20 federal safety plan grant.
Second.
Motion and a second. Begin voting with Commissioner Culbertson.
Aye.
Absolutely.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Right, now we need to consider a motion to approve policy for providing county-provided short-term disability insurance for all eligible employees.
Commissioners, earlier this year, or late last year, you're aware we engaged with a new, basically a new firm that handles our, helps us manage our benefits, BOCC Group. Them and our other consultant with Riley Associates. We've worked on going through all of the benefits. We're getting ready for our open enrollment here in the next month. And with the assistance of the BOCC Group, we were able to identify some changes that we could make that would maintain the level of benefits for our employees, but provide a savings to the county that we could then reallocate to this program. And by providing short-term disability for all employees that are eligible, it wouldn't be, obviously our non-benefit eligible people wouldn't be covered under this. But it also then saves the employees now who are spending approximately $100,000 out of their own pocket to fund this. So it's a savings to them. It's also paid for with a savings to the county. I think it's a great benefit. I did send this out to all departments asking for any feedback. I received a couple on the policy, and strongly recommend that you approve this policy change.
Questions for Mark?
I think it's great.
I'll entertain a
I
motion.
make motion to approve a policy providing county provided short-term disability insurance for all eligible employees.
Second.
Motion is second. Begin voting with Commissioner Culbertson.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay, now, we need to consider a motion to approve an amendment to the insurance opt-out policy placing a cap on the maximum payout amount.
Commissioners, in 2020, we started this policy that provides an opt-out of basically 50% of the individual plan for our health care for employees. I think right now that's around $170, give or take, per pay period for the first two, so $340 per month. I believe that we've been trying to hold our premiums level for the employees who are on our insurance as best we can over the years, and we have increases coming in. I still think at the proposal of $150 per pay period or $300 per month, that it's still a good benefit, that it still encourages employees who have the option to go on a different plan, that they go on the plan, which overall saves the county money. So I just, in discussing this at a staff level, I believe that the 150 is per pay period for the first two is still good. It still provides an incentive. It does put a cap on what that benefit may be overall.
I have no problem with it whatsoever. Now, with that being said, I make a motion to approve an amendment of the insurance opt-out policy placing a cap on the maximum payout amount.
Second.
Further discussion?
Still saves the county money.
And
Yep.
begin voting with Commissioner Culberson.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Right, presentations and discussions. Discussion of George Road.
Just a comment, I just started out easy. I would, after discussing with staff, one of the things with George Road is after the completion of the project, it's being impacted a lot more severely than was anticipated. Potentially us sending a letter to KDOT requesting actual additional help on the roadway after the project is completed.
What type of help,
Well,
assistance?
I'll agree with you on that because there's an asphalt dust control patch on that road. I believe it's well, years ago it was a Clyers. I don't know if they're still there or not. You know, they're elderly couple on the
Yeah,
north
they're
side.
there. They're absolutely.
Oh
they're
wow.
there. Yeah.
We started that in 1980.
Across from Glennie.
They've been paying for that since 1986, 5, somewhere around in there. And I know they redid it a couple of years ago, but I'm sure that's going to need redone.
And the road is
I'm
being,
not, you know, it's over 300 feet, I'm sure.
and you probably everyone I'm sure saw the traffic counts. They remained exceedingly high.
And if KDOT doesn't pay for it, I think the county should pay to redo that dust patch.
Whatever I mean,
Send the letters, what you want to do, Mike.
yeah,
I don't have a problem with that.
and have the staff
Yeah. I
draft
don't see a
it.
problem with that, personally.
Is that the only dust patch?
I don't know if they're.
I'm not talking about the hard surface. That's the only one I remember on that road.
Well,
Is that the only one?
but we can ask to have a letter.
And
I don't
it's
think there's a
something
problem
they've done
Yeah.
for years.
asking
But
if
I
they
think
want.
with the increased traffic, obviously, it's going to require more gravel than it normally
Right.
would.
Right.
More maintenance
Yeah.
from our staff.
Right.
And
I
I
agree.
know that we anticipated an increase in traffic, but I don't think anybody increased that it would be 10 times what it was before the project started.
I think that that's a
So
reasonable
I think
thing to
it's
send
reasonable
that
to ask.
letter.
I don't know that they're obligated, but hopefully they would consider it. And I think I can have Bill probably put some numbers down and provide a letter to KDOT asking at the end of the project that they help us bring that road back up to where it was.
Right. I think that's a reasonable
Sounds like a plan.
request.
Yeah, we'll
And
support
even
that.
if they won't, that we do, that we
That
as
we
a
do
county,
it,
that we
yeah.
make sure
Yeah.
we bring it back to where it was. Absolutely.
And the numbers, I think Commissioner Culberson maybe thought the numbers were going to drop. I was surprised the numbers didn't drop more than that.
Is parallel open now? Can you get to parallel?
I haven't. You mean the little cut
No,
through? I haven't driven that way.
Yeah, I haven't either. I stay away from it.
But so that's the easy part. Do we need a motion on that?
I don't think we do. I think we,
Or
that's
is that
consensus. Yeah, I don't think we need a motion
Just
for
give
it.
direction.
I think that could be done by consensus.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think that it's,
And I continue to be concerned that we don't have a mechanism during these projects to respond. So I know we had a vigorous discussion about it.
we have, yep. That's
So
something
I don't know if
agreed
we
all
want to
the-
kick it down to sometime down the road to have a work session on this or something. But I know people don't realize that the roads are 55, and B, that they're not happy about that, and C, even in a project we don't have a way to respond.
Yeah, but
Mike,
it's-
I think you
but
brought up
it's-
some valid points on that. I wouldn't have a problem discussing it.
We can discuss it, but
Discuss
I think
it
it's just
again
what is the
later on.
solution. I mean, and it's going to be costly. And so when we're talking about trying to work on budgets, I'm just saying that
Because you
it's
can't just put a speed limit sign
right.
every
I mean,
time
because
somebody
and you
says
might.
goes
That's why I
fast
said, and
by
we
the
want to
mile.
make sure that we don't do. It's like do no harm on
Well,
that. So let's
And
look.
I don't want to get into it again.
Right.
because
Let's
with
look
the-
at a future down the road when we're no longer in the this phase of county government, trying to figure out how we're going to handle our budgets and all of those things. Let's have a work session to talk about what might be able to be done and how. What would be the appropriate way?
Can I say one thing on that? Just,
Yes.
I still, even though I know it's 3-2 vote, I still like the idea of the Public Works being able to, on construction roads, be able to make some kind of adjustment. Maybe it's not what we've brought up, but I just think that when we got as many people as we had complaining to us about that area, not be able to put a temporary control speed sign is something that I think Public Works should have the ability to do. And I know I support the 3-2 that was voted on that, but I have to say that I am concerned about that. Not for that project, but for any project.
Read
Thank
the manual.
Well, I know, Doug, I've read
Read
it
the federal manual.
30
It's fine.
years.
Okay,
Well,
but we said
I mean, I don't wanna
we
read
said
Miss-
we're going to
Miss
do.
Brown's
We said
opinion.
we said we will do a work session, and I think
Yeah.
that's a good compromise to have a discussion when we're
Good.
not in a formal meeting. If that's all right with the rest of the commission, we will look at a work session to discuss that. Okay, additional public comment. I don't believe we had any that was needed, so we will do our. Anybody have anything they'd like to report? Commissioner Culbertson, you last night had something.
Yeah, so working with the folks contract company that is trying to get the pilot checks, payment in lieu of taxes from federal entities for us. Had a meeting with them last night. They're meeting with several other counties during this week, and then they'll circle back, and I'll meet back with them Thursday or Friday. But we're trying to get a coalition together of counties to ask for pilot checks from the federal government. This would be replacing property tax in the end. You know, if we were able to get a pilot check from the federal government for the $2.8 billion in valuation that pays no property tax, that would offset the property taxes that the rest of us have to pay.
It's good.
So I met with them last night.
I don't have anything. We've got a work session 4:30 today.
Right,
Yeah.
we do.
Okay,
Okay, well,
that's all I have.
I attended the city commission meeting for Commissioner Culbertson last evening, and it was a very short, nice, short, non-conflicting at all.
They thought I was coming, that's why.
They thought, yeah, because that he was going to be here. It was a pretty decent meeting, though, I do believe. I think that there was a discussion of their budget that, kind of like we have here. I think ours was a little more lively than the city's was last night. And then we have the meeting this evening, and then next week I have Transportation Authority, and we'll also next week be attending the International Officers Luncheon and Breakfast for the recognizing the
Are you speaking
international
at that?
officers for the day.
Are you speaking at that?
Yes. I'll be
You'll
speaking
enjoy
at
that.
So,
I just have Bayshore City Council after we have our work session tonight.
Could be busy.
Keep running late. Yeah.
I just want to recognize the mayor of Tonganoxie's in the audience.
And so is our city commissioner.
Hello, Mayor.
And the city commissioner, Mr.
City
Hengula,
Commissioner.
and Chris Roberts from the Historical Society in Tonganoxie's here.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for coming. Okay, if we don't have any further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.